Testing, testing. My name's Carl Bailey. The reason that I'm recording this is because I cannot get justice in the state of Delaware due to the complicit behavior of multiple departments that have engaged in an act of fraud and forms of terrorism and theft from multiple parties. And I'll go through that, showing you film document of police department, Troop 9, engaging in grand larceny against me, multiple counts of domestic terrorism, multiple counts of unlawful injury, their willingness and complicitness to engage in it. I'll read you letters that was sent out to Dan Hall, which is supposed to be the managing director of Troop 9. The fact that he's never given back a response, and I'll show you what happened and how all of that has panned out for me in the final outcome of the theft of my home, the terrorization of my children and my wife, and their complicitness to engage in federal crimes against me and my family. I'm going to go through this in multiple stages, and I'm hoping that it would be shared across this country on Facebook. I hope that every person who knows me to be the person who I am would take this on their Facebook and their Twitter page, and they would make this a discussion, because this right here can also be, the very fact that this is getting out could be some form of protection against being killed, me and my family, because I'm bringing to light these crimes that were committed by the Pathonetary Office. I'll give you names of persons who were at the forefront of it. I'll show you documents and their willingness to change documents, re-edit documents, write up documents, and then give them a date prior to that has existed prior to try to bring order to the lie, due to them getting due to me contacting parties that should have engaged in some form of protection and resolved in this matter, but they decided not to because of the power of those who were engaged in it. Rather that be because those people who are engaged in this criminal activity, it is racketeering, by the way, it's extortion, that they're afraid because it encompasses them as well. The willingness of them not locking up someone who has engaged in shooting up my house and terrorizing my family, because if he's locked up, if those parties are locked up, they will talk about all of the other parties that have participated in this form of racketeering, because they're not going down alone. So I'm going to take and let you watch this right here clip, one of the episodes, and then we'll get into explaining what it is and what happened here. Thank you. Now here is a picture of what the police officer is looking at when I'm pointing it up. You can see the large holes. Those look like they come from a .22 caliber bullet or so, and then the other ones were shrapnelized. The top, that right there, comes from buckshot shooting out my cameras. This is what he's not refuting or not rebutting to. This is, I'm going to show you another picture as well. Hold on one second. Now, so that you get a closer up picture of what's going on here. This right here, once again, is the front of my house, and this right here is some of the blast thing that took place, shooting out my cameras and everything. And again, I got no police report because, like the second officer came out, that this is his property, he can do whatever he wants to, and I'm still living in my home, which this is going on. Okay, I'm going to show you other damages and locations of the house that the officer is not refuting or rebutting that what he's seeing, because he doesn't want that to be on commentary. He doesn't want that to be held accountable for what he's looking at, and he's not refuting any of my previous engagements with all the other officers. Let me show you what that is. This is what the officer's talking about. He reluctantly not include the fact that he's looking at where they spray painted on my property, keep out. These are the two bays that I'm talking about that I was framing out. Neither did the officer refute when he went into my house that he's actually walking into my lower living room area, my office area, and a bedroom area to the rear. All of this is what he's looking at. So when we went in to turn in the power, you see that there's clothing there, and I'll show you a picture later of my couch. So all of this right here of me not being present is just the attempt to fabricate the narrative, like I said. So I'll show you more clips of what's going on with the property, or our encounters. Once again, here's the rear of my house down. You can see where a bullet broke out here. You can see up here where my camera has been shrapnelized up there, so the eye of the camera has been broken out. This is just one of the many rear shots. I'll show you that camera as well, what they done with it. Once again, here, if you look, you can see here's the camera once it was blown off the side, the upper rear side of the property going into my entry upstairs. And here you can also see where there's a bullet that went inside the house, which is right in my kitchen. The second one that's in my kitchen. This is not the one that the police officer took the bullet out. This one is still in the wall, to my knowledge. And I'll show you those other pictures as well. This right here is a more clear shot. The camera's here down, hanging on the lower to the left, but this is a clearer shot of the bullet that went inside of my kitchen. Now, we're living here now. This is what the police officer's seen. This officer sees this stuff as well. And still no police report. Here's what they done to my lock to get in my house the first couple times. And here on the left side, you'll see that right there is part of my wraparound couch of their entry. This is the door in which you watch me and the officer walk in, and right here to the right of the door is where my electric panel is that you see me make the switch with. Once again, this right here is to the left of the door that you just seen. Here's my security cameras that would come on at night. So at night when we would hear people out, my dog would go off. But once they killed my dog, then the lights would be an issue. So by removing the lights, we would not be able to see them coming up on the property. And needless to say that where I'm no lighting at all in the woods, that you can't see the front of your hand without a light. But this is my security lighting system that was taken out leading up to my upstairs entry. Once again, this is just another shot of the same lower entry door going inside of where my lower living room was at. Now here is my truck. When you pull up to the right where we're standing at, in front of both of us, this is my truck. This is what was sprayed on my truck, which you could see the sides of it, which he does not acknowledge that this happens. And then later on, we come back in here, you'll see where they literally took my wheels off, my brakes off, so that I could not move them even if I had to move them. Took parts off of my vehicle. Just as a reminder, this is my truck and how it was spray painted on, and I want you to note that at this time where the grass was cut, that was not cut by me. This was cut by these people who have been coming on my property because they done already stole my tractors and my lawnmowers and everything. So this is the cutting down of my grass, which I mentioned to the officer prior to this one. Shot out the ones that he could not reach, and he's been still doing this. It went into my house on several occasions. I had bullets in my walls from the kitchen area. When I had the cop come out and take a look at it, he took the bullet out and then turned around and said he couldn't give me a police.
Okay. So you own the property?
Yes. And I'm in the process of dealing with the Attorney General and all of this.
Okay. Does anybody reside here?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do live here.
That's why the power was knocked out.
Okay. Well, I saw that these were blocked off, so I didn't know if
an attempt at terrorism.
you hadn't moved in yet or something like that.
No, I've been in here. This is just me doing further construction. Okay. With windows in there and doing the progressive work.
Okay. And you said when you say cut off your
I would say my daughter came down here.
Did he actually cut wires or?
No. That's what I was looking to see if he dug any holes up here. Look at the meter. Yeah, Marva then already informed my wife. In fact, I could tell you what day that was.
It's on your phone.
Did they say who it was that did it?
Who?
Who called in to get it disconnected?
Nobody called in to get it disconnected. To their knowledge, it's still on. This is just a perpetuation of this terroristic activity. And it is terroristic activity. There ain't nothing broke here. The power switch is on in the panel. This is someone came up here and took this off. You can go, let me open it. Get you stuff.
Where's your
Right here. Panel right here.
panels right there? Okay.
Panel is on.
I wonder where they disconnected it at.
I'm thinking they went inside the meter pan and maybe did what Del Marmo would normally do. Yes.
Well, how would they put this back on there?
You could spring that and put those back.
Oh, you
on.
can? I thought they were. I thought they had some kind of
Crazy, man.
Well, it looks like that's pretty secure.
I already called Del Marvo. They done already told me that they didn't touch anything. They have no record of any.
Are they sending anybody to come out here and look at it?
No. My daughter came down here. I've been staying with her mother in town for a couple of days. I asked her to come past the house to check on the house. And checking on the house, she told me that the power was off. And when she said the power was off, I know we paid the bill and everything, so that's not a problem. But I didn't want her going in there meddling with the panel. So I said, don't worry about it. When I get down there, I'll take care of it. Figuring that maybe we had a power outage and we had a surge that tripped the main breaker or something like that. Came here. I'm just getting here. That main power is on.
Okay, so you don't stay here now?
Yeah, I do.
No, we stay here.
I do. My wife moved in town because of the terrorization. When you coming home,
okay, so you have a second house that she's staying at.
Right. Exactly. She moved out due to because
they're saying, from what I was getting through our dispatcher, they said it's been off for 5 days, and I'm thinking, well, if it's been off, power's been off for 5 days. If somebody's living there, why didn't they call sooner?
No,
if there was an issue.
And I
so that's why I'm just trying to figure it out.
I explained that. She came down here. She doesn't like staying here because when we're coming home and my door is wide open and people are rambling through my stuff, these same people she sees spray painting or keeping out, no trespass. And this is the same guy who's trying to acquire the property.
Who do you think is doing this?
Oh, I know who's doing it. The same guy who's trying to acquire the property under false pretenses in the court. So that's what that is. And I'm attempting to sue him for that.
Okay. So you have a court case actively going on against this guy. And
put it this way. They unlawfully put his name on my title. The sheriff never came here because of the letter I sent him, making him aware of the fraud that was taking place and him being personally liable for his behavior. And it's to cease and desist all actions. He has a courtesy notice. It's on file at Newcastle County because the affidavit of truth stands
against the guy you think that was doing it.
And his participation in unlawfully transferring my name on another guy's property. This guy, over and over, he'll go to one attorney. Once I send him that courtesy notice, he will back off, and I'm still playing this game.
How long have you had this property?
For over 15 years.
Okay, so it's not like it was up for sale. You just recently bought it.
No.
And
This was an attempt at stealing it from the court, making a fraudulent claim and getting a false judgment that
and
is
if you've
bogus.
owned it for 15 years,
right,
through the county, there should be paperwork saying that it's yours.
yeah. But
How is he
his name
going
on it,
about?
because he had a judgment, and now what they're doing is they try to send it down a rabbit hole and transfer it into somebody else's name when the judgment already put a cease and desist order on it.
What is the judgment for?
The judgment is my courtesy notice, is giving him notice that he has no delegation of authority from one. Neither the court has a delegation of authority to enter my property into sale because it's bogus. And I sent him a securitization action on him, all of the federal crimes in which was when they gave a default judgment on the reasons why the judge should have not given him one, that it was based on fraud. And as a result, me sending them that information, they backed off. They had
How do you know him though?
Because his name is on the deed. When I
Yeah,
come
but
up,
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, how did this guy pick you and this property
he got
to
it
change the deed
from the sheriff's sale. From the
Did you
sheriff's
buy this
sale.
15 years ago at a sheriff's
I
sale?
owned this. I bought this
Okay,
from
you
the
owned it.
original owner.
Okay.
I got
Was it going to a sheriff's
I got
sale?
lawful. Yes, I got lawful
Okay.
consideration.
Did it actually
on one
go
property.
to this sheriff's
Yes, it
sale?
did.
So you bought the property
Right.
from whoever owned it before at a
Right.
sheriff's sale.
No, I bought the property and built everything that's on here. I went.
Well, then why would the sheriff even be involved?
I got a lawful consideration on
What
this
does that
property.
mean? I'm not familiar
Lawful
with that.
consideration is what you would call a loan on a property.
Okay.
They said that they filed a claim of default on the loan. But this is 3 properties. When they submitted and got a default judgment, they got a default judgment on 3 properties, which I've never even looked for consideration on the other 2.
Okay. So the default was that
Based on
you were in
fraud.
default or the owner was in default?
I'm the owner.
I mean, the person you bought it off of.
No.
Not to be repetitive, but what you do notice here is that Officer Lordage has not refuted or rebutted the fact that I have been engaging in several calls in reference to these unlawful tactics, these illegal actions, unlawful actions that were life-threatening to my kids and myself. The previous officer, which was not 5 days ago, came out and informed. First, he agreed with all of his findings, and then after he calls his, and I'm waiting for a police report, he calls his superior. Then he confronts me and tells me that his superior informed him not to take and give me a police report in these matters, and that the parties that are involved with these unlawful tactics had a right to do so. They could come onto the property whenever they want. They had a right to steal all of my, much of my stuff, over $70,000 of my assets, and they could come and go, basically as they pleased, that they had a right. I informed that officer that that person had no writ of possession. He has no sheriff has ever served us any documentation. So all of his entrances or coming on this property was trespassing. And that he was wrong in his assumption, and that wasn't his place to even assume that. But nevertheless, this officer has removed a bullet from my wall and took evidence from a crime scene, and then informed me that he wasn't going to give me a police report because his superior told him not to. Officer Lordage does not refute that. He has his radio. He could have called that in, and he's very aware of it. And you notice also that Officer Lordage, that his primary function is he's never once through this whole engagement asked any questions for the purpose that he came out for. And that purpose was to come out for because we'd just been burglarized and people have vandalized and took parts of the axles off of our vehicles and stuff to immobilize them. He's never asked a single question in regards to that. You notice it also that when he's looking, when I'm showing him the multiple buckshots that has shattered my security systems around my house, that he's looking at that, but he makes absolutely no comment about it because he doesn't want that to be on the recorded record. But I've shown you pictures of that in this right here clip. You'll notice that he makes no comment about them coming up and killing my dog, and while he's on a chain. I find him dead on the chain because they couldn't get in my house unless they had to get past him. There's no comment on there. Officer Lordage also he does not make refute or want to acknowledge that when he walks inside of my house, he's walking inside of a fully furnished living room. He's looking also at an office that runs right next to it, and also a bedroom down there with a functioning bathroom, and in clothing and all of the attires of someone living in there. My radio, stereo, television, all of those things he walks into and he sees it, but he absolutely makes no comment on it, because that comment would refute the narrative that he's trying to establish, and that narrative is the fact that they already have the complainant have already has in the courts, filed in the court, being pushed by members of the pathonetary office as that vacant, and they're trying to get the property as a means of abandonment. And I'm going to show you over 24 documents of constant conversations dealing with all of these parties. This is from the district attorney's office. This is from the police department. This is from Janice E. Sharpton, who had all of these officers. You'll see, and I'm going to show you on the clip after the following clip, where establishing the fact that I'm here is without question. The very fact that he even admits that they turned off my power at both of my locations, down at my pole barn and up at the other one. And the fact that I've recorded a person that was sent there that was part of this ousting, cutting my grass with a lawnmower when I had to kick him off of my property and told him to leave. I had that recording, which is within the 5 days that Officer Lord is just trying to give this strange vacancy. Also, that when I sent a letter to his superiors, if he's not the superior person, that when I sent that letter, he's unaware that what I sent the District Attorney General's office is more extensive, and on that it shows that they actually knocked out my power, which caused water lines to break inside of my house, which I had to come back in and make repairs. They cut off my electric, my everything shuts down because of the power. My water, all of that is under pressure, but it's still coming from a well. He's aware of all of this right here. Officer Lordich once again tried to paint the picture that the place is abandoned and all boarded up, but he fails to talk about what was written on that board, which I've shown you a picture of that. Would keep out the same thing with my personal vehicles and stuff, where keep out and all of that stuff on all of my assets, entering in all of my barns and everything. He sees all of this, but not once was he willing under camera to take anything in reference to a complaint with burglary and vandalism and trespassing and grand larceny. None of that. He would not take any at all, and he would not give me a police report so I can establish the fact. And the reason I make that point is because when I sent my letters to the District Attorney General in reference to these federal crimes, as well as multiple counts of criminal obstruction of justice for over 7 different police officers, that he sent me a letter as if these are allegations, because when they took and went into my property, they thought they took all of my documentations and my legal documentations, which they did that but without a bit of possession, in hopes that they would acquire that so I would not be able to do what I'm doing now, showing the district attorneys whatever involvement this is by lack of not doing his due diligence in this matter. Officer Lordich also, what else? He also did not want to acknowledge on the camera that he was looking where, when we got to the front of the property, they dug up my power lines to take them off. Now, there's 2 meters. They're both electronic meters where you could hit them with a switch to shut them off, but instead they went to the roadside and dug a hole up and turned my power off. And the power company done this without my request and would not inform me or give me the information on who asked them to shut it off. They wouldn't even give me that information, and then they pretended as if they didn't know it was off and there was something that blown, so they had to come back and make a repair, but at the same time, they were hooking up power to a terminal I had from my rear lot, which once again, Officer Lordage was there, and he could see that someone has dug a trench, about a 3-foot trench, to continue power lines on my rear lot, and took down dozens of trees, which he pretended not to see. But he's aware that the parties involved was on my property while we were dealing with this interview. They were looking at us through the woods from not leading to my rear part of the property. He would do nothing in reference to any of them. But throughout the whole, I guess you can say, encounter, that you could see that Officer Lordridge's full agenda was to establish that I was not there, we were not living there, because he needed to create a narrative of abandonment, because that is what's in the courts. And when you see the documentations that I provide of me communicating with the courts, it's ridiculous for that to even stand up, unless you believe that those areas, the information or the paper trail was no longer in my possession, which I had some copies in other parties that are still here, that are willing to be a witness to this right here type of criminal activity. I don't think that you could really see this, but this is a document that was sent to the court. Now I'm going to get into all of these documents in this in detail, which is going to really be appalling. That's one. Here's another document of our constant communication with the court. Here's another document with our constant communication with the court. While all this is going on, these are documents that are being filed, and I'm going to give you close-up views of where the letter is at. Here's another document to the Sheriff's Department, and I'll show you a clip where I went into the Sheriff's Department and served them my contract and conditions and my affidavit of facts, which they all accepted, and everyone that's a colleague or party to have accepted the terms and conditions. And I have truth in law that their attempts to seize my property was fraudulent, and they did not have a delegation to do it. Not to mention the fact that the Sheriff's Department entered a poisonous document in the circulation that he served us to get the original default judgment, which he's never served any of us. He cannot show any proof of service because he's never served us that. And the same way that they have established as a group, a conspiratory group, a racketeering group, as much as they gotten together to establish that default judgment, is the same way that they were establishing a default judgment based on the premises of a lie that we were vacant and abandoned the property. This is what they have been doing, and the District Attorney General is very aware of it. He sits back and does nothing. Here's another one, by the way, of all of me not being home and no one's communicating with them. Here's another one, going to the District Attorney General's office, and I'm going to read this document on what he said in regards to my complaint about the terrorism and the domestic terrorism and the threat that we were dealing with. And here's that letter here that I got as a response that his office pretended not to ever have received any of my documentation, but I had the letter because they assumed that I did not have the papers, and I had that as well. Here's another one to Danny Hall, the police, whomever I guess is the head authority of Troop 10, in reference to my complaints and what was going on, and his officers' participation. Here's another letter to Danny Weeds, which is pretty much parallel to this, but it's much more extensive. It gives a lot more information with that there. But yet I'm not communicating with anyone. Here's another note. Here's another note in reference to, 1 second. Here's another note to Janet Z. Charlton, who started this right here, escapade, which again, I have truth in law and standing that she was never representing anyone, because she can't pass herself off as working for a lender when I have proven that lender does not exist. It's a defunct corporation that has no charter or delegation of authority, and that's part of my affidavit of facts, which has went unrebutted and unrefuted by any of them, the Sheriff's Department as well as Janice E. Charlton. Here's the same letter again, once with Cynthia Coleman, and once again it explains to her, and I'll get into the detail what the conversation is on this constructive notice, which they failed to respond to in 14 days, proving that they have a delegation of authority, that the courts that they work with no longer had, that they had a charter, they have a delegation of judgeship, to initiate any type of collections on a fraudulent document. I'm speaking, and I want to be clear that what I'm saying here is that I'm speaking about a mortgage that has never existed, one that they've never been able to provide, because when they attempt to provide it, it's going to show the fraud, which I have a copy of that, which the District Attorney General has that document, and I'm going to go in detail on the overwhelming acts of fraud, with their own statement saying that they're subject to penalty of perjury under the law, and the District Attorney General has that information, has been laying on it, and has not locked up anyone subjecting them to penalty of perjury law from their own documents. Here, this is still another document that I'm continually talking to them. This is a proof of show cause, and I showed them cause. For one, they don't have a delegation of authority to pursue any property for a defunct corporation. And it gets very extensive. I'm going to get into that. But that still is a different issue. The house is a different issue. The crimes and the threats that were made on me and my family's life is a different issue. And it has not been addressed. And that's where I'm looking to begin. Here's another letter coming back from the District Attorney General. But yes, I'm not in my property. I'm under abandonment. And they're in the process. They've been working to seize my property as a means of abandonment. Yet I'm showing you a ton of documents that's just constant. Here's another one that's been constant communications with it. It gets more ridiculous than that. Here's a letter, and I have three more. I opened one. I have three more where I had a realtor trying to buy me out of my house, but yet they're still petitioning the courts to take and get my property based on the fact that I have abandoned it. It just goes on, and I have other documents, and I'll show those, and I'll get into those. So that is the end of with Officer Lordridge, and once again, he did not give me any documentation so that I can go to any court. So this is felony criminal obstruction of justice. Once again, it's deprivation of rights. When you remove the bullet from my wall and the crime scene, now you become an actor of it. You become complicit in all of the other events that I've complained to the District Attorney General's office, which he finds that none of this is in his jurisdiction. That the killing, the walking, trespassing, walking up and killing my dog on a chain, that is something does not fall in his jurisdiction. The multiple counts of criminal felony obstruction of justice from state police officers. Also, I have a recording as well where I contacted Newcastle County Police, and they informed me to go back to the state because they didn't want to get involved. So again, being rejected for any type of help when someone's shooting up my house, walking and killing my dogs. I wake up and someone then opened my door through the night while I was asleep. Just terror, things like that right there. None of that right there is in anyone's jurisdiction, but yet it was permitted to happen, and it has happened. And I'm going to show you another clip, which is going to be with, we're going to deal with, this is still unlawful activity that's being done by the police department, members of Recorder of Deeds, the Sheriff's Department. And now I'm going to show you a clip that's going to deal with Dina Vecchio, who's another officer that comes out when I call once again after dealing with Lordridge. And when she comes out, you'll notice that on this right here initiative, the narrative that of getting my property through acts of abandonment, I guess that may be what the end resolve have been. And once again, you'll hear me well, for the first time, you'll hear me speaking to Dina Vecchio that she has no delegation of authority, or judgeship, or sheriffship to serve me anything. That no one has presented me with a writ of possession, no sheriff, no deputy, no constable. That I'm still standing in truth and law and standing. That she does not have a delegation of authority or a charter. It is when unrebutted and unrefuted, so I'm standing in case and law. You'll hear me mention to her that my affidavit of facts is also with a constructed contract of conditions, and she was becoming an actor in it, a colleague or party to it. So she is accepting those terms and conditions by her implied her actions. And she'll refuse that she is, but in law and standing, according to law, she is, because she's aiding and abetting, and she's being complicit with the grand larceny, the domestic terrorism, all of that right there, because because of, again, deprivation of rights, and will not give me a police report, and going to, by a threat, is extortion. She's gonna see that there's burglary in my property, which no writ of possession was presented to us. We were never served by any sheriff. You're going to see that she's going to tell me that she's going to put me off and arrest me if I return back home, when she does not have jurisdiction to that. She does not have she does not have a writ of possession. Then she goes to her car and she takes and gets a copy that's printed out to her, showing not a writ of possession or a judge that have signed anything with a proof of judgeship, because they don't have it. I challenge them, and no one has refuted or rebutted it. So I have truth in law that they don't have a proof of judgeship on there. But it was by sheer force that she was taking the initiative to kick me off out of my property, and why she's doing it, needless to say, that she's getting it done by a show of force. This why she is committing a crime. First of all, it's criminal felony obstruction of justice. Second of all, she's depriving us of our rights, because she won't give us a police report. Neither will she validate the fact that there was ever a writ of possession served, because none was ever served. So she used brute force. So while she was committing this crime of extortion, she did it by bearing a firearm, which, yes, I was definitely threatened by it. My brother was horrified by it. He informed me before she came up that if things go crazy like I've been telling him that I've been dealing with, that let's get out of here alive, dude, because we're back in a hole and nobody can witness this, and whatever we record don't mean that it will get out and get from in back of this lot with us. So as a form of respect, I quieted down, and under threat, without question and continual duress, that I quieted down and just took her advice, because power was speaking. And I'll read. I want to look at my list here that I made. Once again, points that I needed to make that you hear me say about her not having a delegation of authority to serve an eviction. You'll hear me mention that there's no writ of possession that exists, and she did not present me with one. You'll hear me that they're gaining possession of my property, not by the narrative that the officers have been attempting to create, which was abandonment, but they were gaining my property by brute force and extortion, and that their department was playing a role in this. And I also mentioned to her that under the Title 18 RICO Act, in the depravity of law, and that not only was she committing a crime, but she was also committing treason. But when an officer tells you to move, you move. And you'll notice that she did not rebut or refute any of my claims about her delegation of authority or her possessing a writ of possession or one ever served to anyone. It did not matter, because she was the man. And trust me, she made that clear. She was the man that day. She did not refute or rebut the fact that I've been residing at my home. And she did not refute or rebut all of the past acts of violence and crimes committed to my family that was conducted by Brian T. Murray and J.S. Carpenter Investment, who are the people who have been who have been pushing, again, once again, more poisonous documents. What I'm showing their worker on my property, but yet they have filed and pushing a narrative that they're trying to get possession of my property due to vacancy. Once again, that is wire fraud, because the document is being wired around. It's mail fraud because they they're mailing this in, which is still federal, and it is a poisonous document which showed harm to us. Could not prove it in a court because when I go into the information, you'll see that even the fraudulent constructed mortgage does not even have the standard. With 3 broken chains of titles, it's never been conveyed. The document has been changed from the beginning, and it has morphed into 3 different so-called assignments, and each one of those assignments they swear an oath that they are subject to penalty of perjury under the law in 3 different states, and it changes totally altogether once it gets into Delaware, where it's constructed with the assistance of the sheriff's department, with the constant changing of documents that are obviously poisonous, but stamped forward by the recorder of deeds, with his stamp on these poisonous documents, which contradict one another, but yet it's due process, move it forward because they can do this, and there's no eyes watching them. I'm going to show you all of those, and you'll see that that through this whole thing, this form of warfare of ousting has been the so-called conspirators who have involved in stealing my home when they never had a mortgage on this place has been given complete impunity to do what they want when they want, with the assistance of the police department, with the lack of due diligence, I would say, from the district attorney's office, which I've contacted them, and I have clips where I could show you where I've delivered them documents, and their willingness to go along with the fraud, because it would injure quite a few people that are amongst their everyday circuit. And once again, she does not refute any of my claims of the activities that went on. I don't want to be redundant with that, but you'll see that. And at the end of this right here, other than the threat that I would be arrested if I came back home, and to this date is 5/9/2019, I have not yet been able to go back to my house due to a threat with the show of force by Dana Vecchia, with no delegation of authority, no writ of possession. They did an end run around all of that because this is something that they could do on the underskirts, and they didn't expect this to happen here. So I'm trying to put this out here, and I'm pleading with someone that this is all for help on this matter. I'm also, because I cannot go to the state troop, I cannot go to the police department and file a claim on the very people in the very police department where the officers have been guilty of criminal felony obstruction of justice up to the top. Where else do I go? I can't go to Newcastle County Newcastle County Police Department because they don't want to touch it. Go back to the state. So there has not been anyone that I could appeal this case to for the criminal, the injuries that we have sustained. Then we deal with the fact that all of the documents that have been in circulation have been poisonous from the very beginning of the sheriff's, and they even changed the final complaint, where it went from one property to, it's 3 properties we're talking about here. It went from one property to another property, and all of these are stamped certified, to once it got into Newcastle County, which is Sheriff's Department, they scribed all 3 properties in, and it doesn't even have a history of conveying 3 properties at all, but just a history of showing you the fraud, and I'll get with that. But this is a plea for help from anyone that's out there, and the Attorney General's office, I think, should be ashamed of themselves. This is a state that, while this was going on, the Vice President's home is here. This is a state that still, with this stuff going on, that we have an ex-vice president that's making an attempt to become the president's home. And this stuff is still being done at that high level. Shame on you. I'm going to show quite a bit of documents later. Thank you. Today is February the 24th, 2018. I called for the state police to come here. And now we're going to go through the process of recording and documenting our engagement. This is about the... Hey. Attempting. Mm-hmm.
You're going to court for it.
Right.
Did you contact your lawyer and everything?
Well, we're about to deal with the district attorney general on many occasions with it.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
sure.
So I just need, and I've called you guys out, not you two particularly, but I called you guys out a couple times, and I've never been able to get a police report.
It's probably because this driveway is so long. You guys got a long driveway out here.
But right now,
So I can't get in my house.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I need to know who.
Your name, I'm sorry. What was your name?
Yeah, well, he's my
His
brother.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right. And how long have you guys been living here for?
About 15 years.
About 15 years.
Mhm.
we actually
The bank-
built
the
this
bank-
place.
The bank closed you guys down here?
Well, no.
Well, attempting to close you guys
Yeah,
down?
exactly.
All right. Well, what can we do for you, sir?
Well, again, I can't get in my house because somebody bust the
They
windows and boarded it up, changed the locks.
They're still sitting there.
I came here several occasions. There's times that I come
Give me your
here.
information.
Give
And
me
we'll
information,
go
just,
from there. What's your birthday? Is there a reason we're being recorded?
Yeah, well, because I need to document it because this is about the fourth attempt and I still haven't gotten a police report.
There's probably a
And-
reason why you haven't gotten
And
a
under
police
federal
report.
jurisdiction, Title 18, Section 13242, that falls under the Depravity Act, which is paramount to treason.
What do you need a police report?
I need a police report to validate what's going on here.
Everything that happened here.
Yeah, first of all, there's keep out, no trespassing.
Okay.
They
right?
did all this. They did this.
All right,
Keep out
he-
here.
He still needs your information.
The shooting up my house, bullets in my wall. Okay, well, I'm doing that. Then you change it.
all right, just so it's four. Okay, so no exact day.
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right.
And your name is
It's
Dana
Corporal Vecchio, yep,
Corporal Dina Vecchio.
that's correct.
Okay, and your name is?
95. This is Chris Giakis, badge
Trooper
1863,
Giakis.
Okay.
Christopher Giakis.
Troop 9.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been Troop 9.
5749 extension 0. Yes, sir.
What can we do to get it?
Let's go from start.
So
Mhm.
let's
Let's
get
go
your
from
phone number
start,
also.
okay? We need
88.
The fact that we've already been out here 4 times and nobody's giving you a police report
Uh-huh.
says a lot to me, okay?
Okay.
I'll be honest, that starts right there,
Okay.
There's a reason you're not getting a police report, okay? Not exactly sure what it is yet, we'll
Okay.
figure it out, okay? You own this property,
Yes.
okay? You live here too? Just you?
Right.
You've owned this property for 15 years?
At least.
Okay, so when did the bank take it back?
No, the court. We went into. You said talk to my attorney about that.
Did I talk to your attorney?
No, you said talk to my attorney about
Never
that.
said anything about it.
Okay, so I'll leave that there for them.
She's asking a question.
Well, 15 years.
That's what I'm asking.
Right.
So you've lived here for 15 years?
Yes.
Okay. When did the bank take the property?
No, the bank didn't.
The bank has never taken the property.
It was sold by the sheriff's department unlawfully, when there was never a lawful claim on it
Okay.
from a defunct
Okay,
corporation.
when was that done?
And all of this was done a year ago.
And multiple attorneys came out here and referenced that they tried to get me to take and vacate the property, which I wouldn't. And when I sent them my courtesy notice or my documentation, giving them the affidavit of facts, and it also on my affidavit of fact
So the sheriff's sale was about a year ago, correct?
about.
About a year ago.
Yes.
Okay. And the house was sold at the sheriff's sale.
At
Do you
the
know-
sheriff's.
Right. Do you know who it
They
was sold
entered
to?
it into an unlawful sale.
Okay. Do you know
Okay.
who it was sold to?
This is a J.S. Carpenter Investments. I believe that's what it is.
Okay.
A Bryant T. Murray. Sent him documentation out.
So
Well,
it's
we're-
under J.S. Carpenter.
J.S. Carpenter Investments, as well as a Bryant T. Murray.
And that was about a year ago.
Well, with the paperwork, that's a little bit, that's all in question. First it was a ghost, then it became a name. Okay.
You guys been here all day today?
Yeah, we just came up here. We was coming up here.
What do you need a police report for?
To validate the very fact that my windows were broken in my door.
But if you don't own the house.
I just need about, my stuff is in here. I still have possession of the property.
Okay.
The sheriff's department never came and took possession of the property. So still, again, even despite all of the rest of the noise, there's a form of tenancy going on here.
So who? There's somebody lives in the house.
Me.
He does.
Do you still live here?
Yeah, I live here. I come and I go.
Okay. So you live here unlawfully?
No, I don't live here.
You own the property.
Yes.
It's in your name.
Yeah. Well, it's in. They changed the name on the document.
Who
When
owns the
your
property?
officers came out,
He owns it.
I still own the
You own the
property. I
property.
still have possession of the property.
No, do
That's
you
my
own the
home.
property?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Where's your paperwork?
Can I get in a house?
No.
Okay.
So if it's not your property, you should be able to get in the house.
They changed it. They bust the doors and changed the
You
lock.
got your camera, Jen.
And sir, you said you were here. What time today? What time did you guys get here
We
today?
got here like an hour ago.
I think you got here an hour ago.
We were just coming up here.
All right, stand by. We'll be right back. Investments, okay?
Okay, 1 second.
You can have a copy of that. You're unlawfully on this property.
Okay.
You're unlawfully on this property,
I
okay?
got you.
So if you're caught back on this property, Mr. Carl Bailey,
Okay.
okay, you will be arrested for trespassing.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm giving you forewarning now. It's
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, February 24th, 15:58 hours,
Okay.
2018.
And
And I am Corporal
Dina.
Dina Vecchio.
Okay.
At 1495, Troop 9, 302-378-5749. You can contact the troop anytime. If you're
Okay.
caught back on this property, you will be arrested for trespassing. This is no longer your property.
Okay, Dina DeVecchio. I'd like you
No,
to
no,
know.
no. It's just Vecchio.
Vecchio.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm dealing with persons. DENNA.
Yeah, it's not Del Vecchio. It's just
Deanna
Vecchio.
Vecchio. Oh, I got you. That I've served your department a courtesy notice, Newcastle County, and on the
I don't work
document
for
it states
Newcastle County.
She would know more than I would.
state of Delaware. It's served to the state as well. That you're listed as a colleague.
You can list
of
me
the
however you
seat.
want to list me, sir.
So now
You're
you
back on this property,
understand
you'll
that
be
you're
arrested for
entering into a
trespassing.
contract with me.
I'm not entering
Thank
into
you.
anything.
Yes, you
with
have
Okay.
by your actions.
Okay, sir.
Okay, that's an act of consent by your actions.
Okay.
So thank you, and you already
What
accept the
vehicle is
conditions.
yours?
This is what I wrote up in.
Okay. And that's what you'll leave in.
Shotguns, are you guys
All right,
cutting
sir,
stuff
make
all the
sure-
time, or-
Sure, guilt by association. Don't come back on the property. You'll be arrested for trespassing. I don't think I gotta worry about you, but I'm just giving you a little
Okay.
forewarning.
Okay, fine. He got that.
Mhm.
Like this person in here. We have weapons in there. We don't want somebody to get them.
And my personal
Okay,
belongings.
I will let the owner know that they're in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and personal belongings. Everything's in there. We just need
You've had plenty of notice that
No, I haven't.
Okay,
No, I haven't. Nothing's been delivered.
it's not your property any longer.
Okay.
I'll let the courts deal with that.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. So,
Well, let me ask you, how come we never can find, they can never find this person? This is where it's lost.
I just talked to
Okay, you talk to him, but everybody else is trying.